The application form is the stage where most applicants get cut from the application process for a law firm. And while there could be loads of reasons why they get cut, those reasons can be broadly put into two different categories. One is the content, meaning what you're writing, and two is the style, meaning how you're presenting it. And it's that second point that I really want to focus on in this video, how you can present your applications really well. Now, that doesn't mean that the content isn't important. In fact, it really, really is. But I see a lot of applications which have good content. It will mention good work experience, involvement with societies and other extracurricular stuff, or it could just be a really good answer to the question. But it's let down by the fact that it's not presented in a really readable way. And the fact that it's not easy to read is going to put off any grad recruiter who's going through that application. Another thing to remember about the presentation of your work is that as a lawyer, you have to be a really clear communicator. And when I say communication, a lot of the time it's going to be through writing, either an email or a letter or whatever else it might be. So by structuring your application well, you're essentially just showing that law firm that you have one of the main skills that is required to be an effective lawyer. In this video, I'm going to go through 3 tips that I think is going to make your application style better than it's ever been. The first tip is to structure with subheadings. When you're writing your applications now, you're probably using paragraphs to group sentences together. But this is going one step further. What I'm suggesting is to use subheadings to give each paragraph a really clearly defined job. So it's not just introduction, middle, end. First, you want to break up the question into sections, then use subheadings that match up with each one of those sections, and then write one paragraph underneath each subheading. So let's look at a demonstration of how you can use subheadings in this way to improve the structure of your answers. In this question, you're asked to outline the reasons you want to work at a law firm, and you have 250 words to do that. A simple way that I would use subheadings in this case is to put each reason in its own paragraph. So reason 1 could be culture, reason 2 could be innovation, and reason 3 could be practice area strengths. Once you've got those subheadings decided, all you have to do is just write one paragraph under each of those subheadings that is related to the title. In this second example, you're asked to write about a goal you've worked towards, how you approached achieving that goal, and then the lessons that you learned. Again, you've got a 250 word limit. The way I'd use subheadings in this example is like this. I'd call the first subheading the goal, and I'd put 30 words for that. The second subheading, I'd call my approach to achieving it, and I'd put 90 words for that. The third subheading, I'd put as the result, again 90 words here. And the final subheading, I'd put lessons I learned, and I'd budget 40 words for this. If you look closely, you can see how the subheadings each match up to one section of the question. Essentially, if you get a paragraph under each one of these subheadings that answers what the subheading is asking for, you'll definitely have answered the question. And then what I do at the end, before actually submitting the application, is that I just remove the subheadings. This technique makes sure that you've answered the questions, because you've set the subheadings to cover the main points you want to talk about. It also gives each paragraph a job and a really focused theme, which makes it easier to read. I find that it helps me manage the word limits in questions as well, because you can budget a certain amount of words for each subheading before you get started. The second tip is to limit your language. In my earlier applications, I would try and use complicated words. I thought it would maybe sound really impressive and would get me ahead in the application process. But since then, I've learned that simple is better. If you use simple language and short sentences, it will make your applications easier to read, and I promise you that GradRec will be grateful for that. Again, it's useful to think about your job as a lawyer and what you're ultimately going to be asked to do. You're going to be asked to write letters or write advice or emails to clients who are not going to sit and read through 10 pages of your answer. They don't want extravagant language and loads of complicated terms. All they want is a really clear answer that's easy to read. So if you're doing this in your application, again, you're showing that you have one of the main skills that a lawyer needs. So let's do another demonstration and let's have a look at how this sentence could be simplified. This is actually something I really submitted for a real application back in my first year. And it was a question that was asking about an achievement that I'm proud of. Just so you have some context on my answer, it was about the fact that I learned some new design software over the summer, and that enabled me to help out to promote our Law Society ball. So this is what I originally wrote. Most recently, my involvement in the creative process of our Society Winter Ball has evinced my new abilities. I created a promotional video, tickets, banners, and brochures to publicize the event using the aforementioned softwares. I then proceeded to create a Facebook event where interested students could access ticket information or changes to schedules. As past committees had used conventional physical publications, this new online approach to advertising the ball is a demonstration of my innovation. Now that is what I wrote originally in one of my really early applications, and this is how I'd simplify it if I had to rewrite it now. I used my newly gained skills to create digital promotional materials for our society's winter ball. In the past, the society used physical means of promoting the event on campus. However, my digital content allowed us to focus on online promotion instead, using social media. This new approach to advertising demonstrates my innovation. You can see how that second version is shorter, and it drops all the unnecessary words like aforementioned, evinced, and proceeded to. To be honest, I think I was just using those words at the time to sound clever and make it really impressive, but it just makes it way harder to read. The second version is shorter, easier to read, and it's still kept in pretty much all the important information. The third and final tip is to check your readability level. Now this is a bit of a weird one, and I've not actually seen anyone mention this before, but it's one that I think is quite useful. There are actually equations that exist that can measure how easy your writing is to read and comprehend. The formula is called the Flesch-Kincaid formula, and without getting into the whole history of it, it basically looks at how long each of your sentences are and how many syllables are in each word, and then it gives you a score between 1 and 100. A score of 1 means your writing is super hard to read and probably has loads of complicated words, or the sentences are really long, and a score of 100 means it's really simple to read, but like probably at a primary school level. I'm a believer in the fact that readability plays a big part in the success of your application. It's pretty much the whole theme of this video. If you just keep in mind the fact that there's a grad recruiter sat at the other end of this application form, reading through thousands and thousands of these apps, you can see how yours being easy to read could really benefit you. So the way you can check the readability of your answers is to just go onto an online readability calculator. The one I'm using is from a site called Good Calculators, which I've linked down below. Next, you just copy in your application or a section of it, like I've done here. And once it's analysed it, you can see what score you're getting. A reading ease score of around 35 to 50 is what an average university student is writing at, and I'd say it's a good benchmark to aim for. But remember that readability checkers like the Flesch-Kincaid formula aren't perfect, and you shouldn't rely on them 100%. Sometimes in your law firm application, you might have to use a long word, like something like multi-jurisdictional, which the formula won't like, but it would be perfectly appropriate in that context. Just use it as a tool more so than anything else, but still keep your own judgment in mind. So that brings us to the end of this video, going over a few tips of how I think you can write better applications. To sum up, those 3 tips were to structure your answers with subheadings while you're writing them, to limit your use of complex language and long sentences, and to check the readability of your answers. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you find the tips useful in your applications as well. Let me know your thoughts by leaving a thumbs up or a thumbs down or a comment down below. If you're doing your law firm applications right now, consider subscribing, because I'm going to be putting out some more application related content too. I've got an Instagram page which I use to post updates and to get topic ideas from you guys as well. So follow me on there and send me a message if you've got a topic in mind that you want me to cover. Anyway, I hope this helps you out, and I'll catch you next time.